right, welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Please silence all cell phones and note that this meeting is being taped by FCTV. Any private party recording this hearing, if there is anyone, please step up to the podium and ask for permission. I'm going to introduce the board and the staff. On my far right is Mark Finneran. He's a regular voting member. Closest to me is Frank Duffy, the clerk. My name's Suzanne Murphy, chair. To my left is James Morse, vice chair. To his left is Tony Pertucci, an associate, and Nick Haney, another associate. Then we have Noreen Stockman, our zoning administrator, and Ashley DeMello, our office assistant. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with applying the state zoning statutes as well as the town zoning bylaws in reviewing and voting on any application. All decisions are made through the public hearing process. Our goal is to hear testimony from the applicants and the public and to allow a full and fair decision of the projects prior to the closing of the hearing process and reaching a decision. Number one, to begin each hearing, the clerk will read the public announcement for the hearing and read pertinent information from the file. 2, the applicant or the applicant's representative will then have 15 minutes to make a presentation, but time may be extended by the vote of the board. 3, the board will then question the applicant. 4, next, the public will be invited to comment. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes and be strictly related to the proposal. All members of the public wishing to speak should wait to be recognized by the chair and should come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please speak into the mic, and it will amplify your voice and record audio for the FCTV viewers. And if there's any person tonight that wants to make a public statement not relating to anything that's on our agenda, you can come up at this time and give us your statement. Other than that, we're going to go right to hearings. Is there anyone that wants to make a public statement? All right, so our first hearing is a continuation requested by the applicant, 214 Gifford Street in Falmouth. And I would welcome a motion to continue this to November 21?
Yes.
To November 21.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue to November 21st.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And tonight we have a member of our Water Quality Management Committee, the chair actually, that's going to enlighten us.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me here. I am Stephen Rafferty. I live at 34
Hello.
King Street. I am the chair of the Water Quality Management Committee. We are an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen. We are tasked with looking at ways to reduce nitrogen loading to our marine estuaries. We've been around for a number of years. We've looked at a wide range of things. What I'm here tonight to do, because it seems as though people are starting to take an interest in some of our work on what we're doing around what's known as watershed planning. Whoops. There we go. So, a little bit of background and introduction. Some of you may know this, but why is Falmouth creating watershed plans? Back a couple of years ago, the Massachusetts DEP promulgated regulations, a new regulation 314 CMR called the Massachusetts Watershed Permit Regulations, which established the permitting requirements for watershed plans. It's linked to the state sanitary code, which is commonly known as Title V, and there were upgrades to the Title V relative to establishing nitrogen-sensitive zones and the interaction back and forth about how that works. Basically, there were two choices. By January 2024, towns that had nitrogen-sensitive zones and were obligated to make watershed permits, watershed plans, could file a notice of intent to prepare watershed plans, or they could do nothing, at which point all new construction upgrades, et cetera, in a nitrogen-sensitive zone would be obligated to install an advanced treatment system. As of January, they actually moved that date to June. but there was no timeline. The advantage of doing a notice of intent is the town gets to establish a little bit of a timeline. You know, we were able to file a notice of intents, one for each of the 14 estuaries, and staggered them out over a period of time, both when they had to be prepared and when we would follow through. One of the items that's inside the plans is you have to, every 5 years, monitor the health of the estuary and report on it. And rather than have 14 estuaries coming up every 5 years, we distribute them out to spread that exercise out so it'd be a little more manageable. So, where are the nitrogen-sensitive areas? This is the DEP's map. For those of you that are good with your eyesight and know the Cape, you can see that most of the south shore of the Cape is considered a nitrogen-sensitive zone. Portions of the Buzzards Bay side of Falmouth are considered nitrogen-sensitive zones. Essentially, all of Mashpee is considered a nitrogen-sensitive zone. So, for each estuary, there is a determined number called the total maximum daily limit for nitrogen. These limits were established about 18 years ago through a thing called the MEP study. The nitrogen level is established at a sentinel station. So, for example, in Great Pond, the nitrogen concentration should not be above 0.4. It's currently in the 0.8 range. So the preliminary watershed plan, which is what the committee's been working on with their consultant, is based on reducing nitrogen loading. And it'll be done either with sewering. When you sewer, basically you're capturing all the nitrogen. And the calculation for how much nitrogen you get out says you take 90% of the water usage at that property. The state has decreed that the magic number is 35 milligrams per liter of nitrogen in sewage. People will argue that it's a higher number or a different number, but the state is you will use 35. And there's a piece of math you do that determines how much nitrogen you're removing for every home you sewer. The other thing that the state has got is, it used to be called innovative alternative, but now they're using the phrase advanced on-site treatment. And the nitrogen reduction for an advanced on-site treatment system is calculated on a formula that uses 90% of the water usage, the same amount of water gets to the septic system. They presume that 10%, what did I just do? No. Is there a back button?
Double click on that.
It's the arrows at the top left, see it?
I don't know.
Arrow at the top left.
Top left arrow?
Wants to go to the right and double.
Thank you. Oh. So, I want to go back one space. So, the state considers that for the advanced on-site treatments, that they operate at a 10 milligrams per liter limit. So that means that there's a 25 milligram per liter credit that can be claimed. Now, there's a little bit of a DEP rubric relative to advanced on-site treatment. Inside these regulations that got promulgated, the DEP mandates the use of best available for advanced on-site. DEP has included in their regulations an expectation that best available will have an effluent of 10 milligrams or less. 35 minus 25 equals 10. Currently, the systems approved by the DEP for advanced treatment only achieve 19 milligrams per liter. However, there is a process for getting systems approved. It requires 50 installations, which is called provisional, and 3 years of proven performance to move to full approval. Currently, there are 2 systems at various stages. One has more than 50 installations, but not yet 3 years. They will get there within the next year. And another one which has 8 to 10 installations and only has 1 or 2 years worth of data. So why do I cover that? Well, I'll get to roll back to that in a minute as we start building these plans. What areas are expected to get sewers? So the town has a comprehensive wastewater management plan, the CWMP, It's been reviewed and approved, blah, 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 by all the people that have to do that. And it defines the areas on the South Coast estuaries that are targeted for sewers. We're currently designing some for the Tassa Area 1. The town is also in the process of implementing an ocean outfall that will have a capacity of 2 million gallons per day. The preliminary watershed plans incorporate the proposed sewer areas and have an expectation that there will be an outfall at a point in the relatively near future, that being probably a 4 to 7 year window available for the sewer effluent to go to. For those of you that know where the sewers are going, great. For those of you that don't, this is a little map. Little Pond Sewer Service Area is already sewered. The next block over is the T-Tech at Tassa 1. The next one is the Acapesca Peninsula, a small portion at the top of Davisville Road, and then out to, I always say Seacrest, Seashores. Seacoast. So, we've been developing something called geo-boundaries, which, you know, they're overlay districts. It's just that we're using GIS to do all of this, and the phrase in GIS these days is geo-boundary. So the exercise was to define the areas in each of the watersheds that likely will require an advanced on-site system. I'm sure that some of you might have heard over the last year or two, people said, well, we should pass something to make everybody within 1,000 feet of a water body put in an advanced system. Mashpee has adopted that regulation, but as you saw earlier, all of Mashpee is in a nitrogen-sensitive zone. And the real exercise is, how do you get the number down to where you want to do it? So, the first step when we look at each of these estuaries is we calculate the reduction from areas proposed to be sewered, if there is a sewer area in the watershed. So, for example, if you're in West Falmouth Harbor, there are no sewers. If you're up in Megansett, there's no sewers. But if you're on the South Coast, there's sewers. So we calculate what we're going to get out using the sewer. And then the remainder of the required reduction needs to be achieved by advanced on-site systems, again, in this preliminary stage. And you calculate that based on water usage reduction at individual parcels, and then aggregate all those reductions until the goal is achieved. So we sit there and we go, okay, we start just adding parcels up from the bottom to the top until you get there. So, where does this preliminary plan go from here? So right now, we have reviewed 11 of the 14 estuaries. We have preliminary plans developed for them. All estuaries will be completed by early November. And then the plan is for the Water Quality Management Committee to develop proposed guidance on implementation of the geozones during November and December, i.e., you know, who has to do what, when, and how fast, you know, what type of variances may or may not be available. And then there's a possible joint discussion with the Board of Health before the end of the year. Currently, a representative from our committee goes to Board of Health, presents each of these geo-boundaries as we've been preparing them. A representative from the Board of Health attends our meetings to give feedback back to us. So we're not working in vacuums from each other, okay? And our goal is to develop a recommendation and present that to the Select Board in January, because again, we don't have any direct implementation power. We're an advisory board to the Selectmen. Okay, so this is going to give you an indication of the results of the work we've done so far. So if you come back up here into Megansett, so what you're looking at here is these swooping lines coming back represent the boundaries of the watersheds. Water all flows from the top of the Sagamore Lens out. So back in the Megansett area, it's a relatively small but densely packed area, a lot of small lots, so it'll be a challenge to get advanced systems in there. You move down into Rand's Canal, quite a bit of that got incorporated. Fiddler's Cove, turning the corner, looking at Wild Harbor. And then down here, this is West Falmouth. No, that's not West Falmouth. That's
Old Silver.
yeah, that's the backside of Old Silver. That's
Wild Harbor.
That's wild.
yeah. And then you move down to West Falmouth, which, because the plume from the existing treatment plant has been getting smaller and smaller. A fair amount of that is fairly healthy, but this back cove here is not healthy. So that's why this geoboundary area was created, because that's the portion that drains into there. Now, what did I just do? Can I make it small? Can I make it? There we go. So we're on the south coast, and the ones we haven't done are going from east to west right now. We have not looked at Little Pond, which is heavily sewered. We've not looked at Little Harbor, and we've not looked at Oyster Pond. Those are the last three that we will look at. But when you look at the south coast, and I will just for a moment cover Great Pond, because that's what we covered last night. A small portion of it is already sewered, because that was all part of the Mara Vista exercise. There's an area to be sewered in the future. But then in order to get down to the TMDL, we in essence have to put advanced systems into just about the entire rest of the watershed. Part of that is there's a lot of flow that comes down to Great Pond. If you recall, the town acquired some land years ago for possible land-based discharge. What we found a few years back when we started looking at, when you took all the wastewater and then you added 3 milligrams per liter back to the land-based discharge at the Augusta site, that was going to go into Great Pond, and we weren't getting to where we needed to get to. We were making the situation there worse. So that is why we moved to the outfall. But if you look across, again, you can follow along here. You move over to Wacoit Bay, a pretty substantial area in there. Again, it's in the preliminary plan. The next step, after we present this to the selectmen, is likely going to be to move to actual creating watershed plans, at which time things like cost, benefit, and timetables will start to get developed. What we didn't take much account for is aquaculture, where there is some benefit, but not a big enough number to shift the overall scale of what we're looking at. And as we did each of these estuaries, we did sort of highlight a couple of places where something called a permeably reactive barrier might be of some benefit, specifically over here in West Falmouth Harbor. This little area out here may lend itself to a barrier, but that's the next step where we're at. So I will take comments and questions, but I know that, you guys review a lot of things. The Board of Health now, if you're coming in for a septic upgrade or a new septic system, they're making sure that the engineer has left a provision to be able to plug an advanced system in. They left hydraulic lines in there. To the extent that you're dealing with people, if they're in what I just showed you, they probably should be aware that if they don't do it now, it's coming, okay? And whether they're gonna have to do that in 4 years, 5 years, or 10 years, and how the town's gonna actually implement that, make it advantageous for people to put them in or help them with the cost of putting that in. Those are open questions that we are wrestling with. So, and I brought with me that I'll leave a copy with you. There's a lot more detail for each of these than I just sort of said, all the numbers and the sources and water flow and everything else. That's the one we did last night. You can make copies of that and distribute it to your board in case anybody has a need for pages full of numbers. There are small variances between what's known as the Cape Cod Commission's model, the MEP model, but at the end of the day, things don't move that much. And as we put this together, two important things to keep in mind. We created these boundaries right now on the assumption that systems that operate at 10 milligrams per liter will be available. If we turned around and said that we're going to do these with 19, you're going to see much bigger geoboundaries, and you're going to see places where we can't ever predict that we're going to make where we're at. One exercise that's going to come down the road here a little bit is with an outfall, we're pretty certain on the outfall at this point. We haven't run into anything that tells us the outfall is not going to happen. But to the extent we get to a certainty on the outfall, we're sizing it for 2 MGD. Total flow projected to go to the wastewater plant and go out the outfall is currently 1.7. So there's a cushion in there that could be redistributed in certain select areas that would reduce the number of advanced systems necessary. But we're not at the point where we can do that yet, okay? And particularly on a couple of these estuaries, we're essentially saying that everything is going to have to be an advanced system, and we're still not certain that we make the limits. So those might be more of a target of where you distribute. Because for every home use sewer, it's roughly the equivalent of 2 of those advanced systems. Did I overwhelm you?
Not yet.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Tony, start it off.
As everybody's aware, we have many large projects coming before us in the form of 40B. And one of the things that, of course, we can't talk about those cases, but one of the things that they always ask to waive is Section 247.2 Coastal Pond Overlay District. And it's a very narrow definition of what is to be considered in it, such as a subdivision with more than 5 lots or 5 acres. Some of these, all of these 40Bs don't have 5 lots. They're all just one big lot with maybe 12 or 20 units in it. It's the same thing as having 5-lot subdivision, but just much bigger. They always ask to waive it. So I always try and bring it into the conversation because I, for one, don't think it should be waived if there's no sewer. And it requires them to make an analysis to this board as to what effect they'll have. So if you have a vacant piece of land and you build something, you have a tremendous effect on that nitrogen load. We heard from you, we heard from the Board of Health that, and we see this in the plans, that there has to be room for the IA system in between the standard Title V. And as a board member, I'm just speaking for myself, I have no idea if that's ever going to happen or when it might happen. And when we are forced, because it's too expensive, according to the 40B applicant, to put an IA system in for all of these units, what type of damage are we creating, not we, but the development creating, by not insisting these things go in immediately? Because they're going to go in eventually. You're eventually going to come down to many of these areas where they're going to be required because the system is there. Why aren't we just making these things happen now? I don't know if you have an answer for that.
I think I do. As I said, we're working with the Board of Health. The Board of Health is probably going to put forth something again in the next couple of months or 3 months that will say if you're in a nitrogen-sensitive zone and you're doing new construction, you will put an advanced system in.
So it behooves the developer to just go ahead and do it, get it done once.
Yeah, either that or I would suggest that if they don't, they need to be very clear to their buyers where they're at and the expense that they're going to see show up in the next few years.
Is it irresponsible not to do it? Well, I shouldn't ask you that question. I'm not going to, I don't need to make...
The way these regulations are all put together, it's going to have to be done. They're giving the communities 20 years to implement it. Every 5 years, you have to monitor, measure it. You got to say whether you're achieving the plan, and if not, you got to revise it to show how you're going to achieve it.
So one more question. So in these 40Bs, several of the units, up to 25%, maybe more sometimes, are affordable if they're home ownership, they're affordable units. And by then not having the developer put it in for the affordable units, they're now forcing, what I'm hearing is they're going to now force the affordable unit owner to now spend maybe another $20,000 to put the IA system in. Instead of doing it now, making it part of the affordable homeowners mortgage and valuation, they're going to force the affordable homeowner to then either refinance or find $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in cash. Would that be an accurate statement?
It's very accurate.
Okay, thank you.
The other side of all of this is the State Department, the state modified a regulation that's administered by the Department of Revenue that now says if you're a primary homeowner and your system is deemed to be in failure, you can get tax credits up to $18,000 spread out over, I always forget whether it's 4 or 6 years. The issue with that is it sounds good, but first off, it's only primary homeowners. Secondly, if you aren't paying a lot of state tax, you don't get the full benefit of the credit, okay? So if you're making under a certain amount, let's say $60,000 or $70,000 a year, you don't have a big state tax bill. So
We have to
now-
be at 80% of the median state income, of the town income.
Right. So, but one of the exercises, again, one of the things our committee has been wrestling with, and we've gotten some guidance on this recently, is to turn that regulation around. And this is going to require active participation of all the legislatures on the Cape, and we're getting geared up to go talk to all of them, to turn it around so that you would get $16,000 from the state. The state, at some point, the state needs to step in and help out, because this is a big issue across the entire Cape. So instead of offering something that looks like $16,000, but in reality is only available to certain people, and for a lot of people, it's way less than that. If the state thinks $16,000 is a reasonable amount to give somebody who's got to put in an advanced system, we need to modify their law and regulation over the next couple of years so that it's available to everybody that does it.
One more question, Madam Chair. So the definition of failure is very important here. What defines a failure? By not having an IA system, or the
Yes.
Title
Yeah.
V failing?
No, the read that we've all gotten so far is once there is a plan in place, and the plan says, thou shalt do this going forward, that the Board of Health would implement a regulation, and so they would say, your system is no longer in compliance with Title V, because inside Title V is this stuff about the advanced treatment and the tie back to the watershed permits, okay?
Thank you.
There's several items here, and you touched upon the current overlay districts for water resources. As this goes forward, we will need to go to town meeting and rescind that. Once we have we get to the point where, so there's several sort of political steps here, and it's up to the selectmen to help choose what they want to do. At one level, the Board of Health could by fiat do it, declare it public health. That's probably not going to happen, because I don't think that's a smart move. The other one would be to take it to town meeting under some condition, and get a positive vote out of town meeting, because then, in some levels, that helps to say that it's, it's a citizen's action, not just an action by a board, okay?
Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
Go easy.
The state's tax credit approach, one could argue that it favors the wealthy,
Why are you arguing that point?
because it's obvious that it
Yeah,
does.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're a household making $120,000 a year,
You can utilize the
and you
whole
own,
grant.
and you own,
whole-
you own your property, you can get up to 60% of the cost of doing this back. That includes engineering, okay? And, some people may fit that definition, but a lot of people that are in these zones do not fit that definition.
That could be weighted a little more fairly by having the towns participate in using the property tax.
Yeah, that is an
In the
option.
balance.
But right at this moment, our first sort of pushback is to change that state law so that everybody's entitled to the $16,000. They don't have to have paid $16,000 in taxes over 4 years. They would get it back. They would get, it's basically a grant from the state to individual homeowners.
You're going to get some pushback on that one.
I think, I think once we get all the legislatures on the Cape, because again, come back to that map, everybody's in this boat, all up and down the Cape.
But it's the Cape, it's not the whole state, so it's going to be a tough one to sell.
Yeah.
Some kind of a hybrid needs to come. Now, we've,
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, though.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Go fight for us, will you? And we've taken the targeted watershed approach. What's the timeline before all these watersheds are addressed?
Let me send you a summary. The first one is due, I want to say 2 years from now, Mark, okay? The next one's due like 3 years from now, 4 years and 5 years. So we have 4 different groups of watersheds. We're not going
Yeah.
to drop 14 in at once.
So you're 2 or 3 together, so this thing will be done inside of 10 years?
Yeah, I think the target is a 6 or 7 year time frame to have all the watershed plans prepared.
Now, and I don't, the way this approach, I don't know if it's Brian Howe's way, but you measure the estimated nitrogen outlet or whatever, output by water usage. Now, it seems that there would be a vast difference between, the newer 1.28 flush toilets than the older 5. Does that really have any effect on the overall
No,
metric?
No.
It averages all out? So there wouldn't be any attempt to outlaw older toilets
No,
for other obvious reasons, still
Plumbing code requires you to put them in now, so if you're doing upgrade or whatever.
slowly there, but some of the old ones last forever.
The DEP's rubric around this, as I use the phrase, is very conservative, okay? The end of the day, the goal is to make the estuaries return to health. So as areas get sewered and as things go in, one can readily say we're taking out more nitrogen than we're getting credit for taking out. So we should see a response of the estuary sooner. And if on the 10-year or 15-year, we've seen that, that we're hitting targets where the Sentinel station number is dropping from 0.8 down to 0.6 or 0.5, or we're getting to 0.4 at a certain rate, that may beg to determine at what point do you, again, redraw your boundary to accommodate what you're actually seeing.
Now, it's just my opinion, but it seems like some of these potentials have been slow-walked, like permeable reactive barriers. I
would beg to differ with you. Several permeable reactive barriers were put in, including one in Falmouth. The data's been collected on how they work and their effectiveness and how much they have to be sort of regenerated by getting another infusion of the vegetable oils.
Had one at Webner for
Well, there's
how long?
There's
15 years?
There's 2 or 3 down the Cape that are functioning, that got funded through the SRF fund, and there's a couple more going in.
And, like the one at, there's one at Webner, right, which has been there 15 years? And
Yeah.
How come there's no data out there? And
There's data on that. It's a wood chip one,
Yeah.
and it's very shallow at the shoreline. During the last year, we did put forth a grant request, which we've not heard the answer back on yet, to design and then construct a barrier up in the upper reaches of the Wacoit watershed that would pick up a fairly dense neighborhood up there, and it looks good for a permanent reactive barrier. It's a long ways away from where a sewer would ever be. And
Yeah, I mean, and that's
so-
obvious. I mean,
Yeah,
I would have had one on the end of D-Ticket path a long time ago. And there was always talk of one along Acapesket, and I don't think it ever came to fruition. And again, still, Webner's had theirs there, and I've never really seen any data on it, argument
So you're-
pro or con.
What you're advocating is things that, as we actually create final plans, need to be closely scrutinized in each of these watersheds.
Well, 15 years is long enough to scrutinize something, I think, and I just haven't seen any data out there. And I know that Lombardo uses his, package plants and quite successfully with it, and It just seems to me that towns favor the sewers because they're moneymakers. That's my real point. They work, but they're moneymakers.
The underlying issue is that
It's a hidden
the
tax.
DEP,
Is the tax.
the DEP says sewers or advanced treatment, and everything else, they're reluctant to either offer us credits for things that we do, or, I mean, we've spent the better part of 2 years now trying to get the DEP to even tell us what we would have to do to get urine diversion accepted by them.
Is another
And-
example.
And we're still working on it, so,
No.
I mean,
Jim,
Like
you
I
have a
said.
question?
I just have one, and I realize we're getting kind of off of what's purview of zoning. What's the plan going to be for homeowners who do not have land sufficient to put one of these systems in? You've testified or stated that it's a failure. What's going to happen to those homeowners if they don't have the space to put in one of these advanced systems?
I think it's a hypothetical.
I think it's a realistic one, though.
Well, let me finish. I think it's a little bit of a hypothetical situation, because having sat on the Board of Health and seen engineers bring in plans to sewer things in the heights, where one would say there's no land to put a system in, we actually have an element of what we look at, which is what we call like undersized lots. So we say, we actually look at, okay, how much space do you need to do this, okay? And then one of our overlays we have is how many of the lots that we're talking to are going to take additional effort to make it fit. And that will be used to sort of help define the expected cost of putting an advanced system in. If there's plenty of room, it might be a $25,000 or $30,000 to $35,000 exercise. If there's very limited room and you have to do things like remove driveways and, other items in your property, then the price goes up. Okay?
Frank, a question?
If you're in a nitrogen-sensitive area and you have a Title V system, and then you're suddenly required to put one of these advanced treatment systems in, does that mean you have to replace your whole system, or is it a modification of the existing one?
It goes in between the existing tank and your leach field.
And
So depending upon how your system's laid out, you may wind up with having to do some pumping to get into the IA system. So, a pump at the end of your septic tank.
I'm wondering now, just to follow up on a point that Mr. Petrucci raised with 40Bs, is there going to be any plan to require some of these developments have common systems, so we're not have to worry about all of these Title V systems here and there all over the place?
It's up to the developer what he does. I don't know that we're going to require them. However, I would point to the development that is going up or is nearly finished on Brick Kiln Road. When I was the water superintendent, we made a point that, although there is an overlay district and it's a town thing and it's not the state thing, that development was going to directly contribute nitrogen to the town's drinking water supply, and it was a public health issue, and it needed to be addressed. The developer, top of my head, I think there's 32 units in the development off of Brick Hill Road.
It's 28.
28, okay, good. You would remember me. Initially, the developer was looking at putting 28 IA systems in, which meant that each of the homeowners was going to get annual costs to monitor and measure, da-da-da-da-da. And they came back and said, how about if I put 2 systems in? Make a homeowners association, and then, the cost to the homeowners gets reduced because you're only monitoring one system. And that is actually one of the 50 systems that's in place now that's anticipated to operate at less than, at 8 or 10 or less. Okay, so there's 2 Nitro-E systems in that development in town. There's another one out at the College Light Opera Company's facility out at Chappaquiddick. And I think there's one on a private property out on one of the ponds. So there's at least 3 or 4 Nitro-E that are in that group that are for demonstration. So from a developer standpoint, if somebody's going to say, you know, you're putting 20 whatever in, you're going to put 20 separate systems in versus putting a couple of systems in, it's probably cheaper in the end of the day to put in the 2 systems than put in the 20. So economics should drive it.
And a little fairer for everybody involved.
I think so.
Lower maintenance
Okay.
overall.
Yeah, well, now I'm going to get technical on you. Biology is what's in play here. You know, there's certain bugs that get rid of nitrogen. These bugs don't grow really fast, and they like to get their food on a regular basis. So when you have individual homeowners, some of them are only weekends, some of them are heavy in the summer, and other times, one of the issues is it's hard to keep the system performing at a really good level when it's just your home, unless you're there all the time and using all of your facilities. If you know, when I was on the Board of Health, people have the 19 milligram systems, and, you know, they'd get a good reading in August because the system had finally come to working late in the summer. Then they'd go away for the winter, and they'd come back in the spring, and they'd sample it, and the numbers would be horrible. You know, when they would want to reduce from sampling 4 times a year and reducing their cost to 1 or 2, and we'd have to say no. So when you combine these all together, you're now getting flow from multiple homes and whatnot, and the biology is more likely to be a healthy biology.
Okay.
We call it mixed liquor, but that doesn't sound very
One
good.
last question.
Thank you.
I promise, one last question. Talking about the development on Brick Hill, near our water treatment plant, what did you call, it was a detrimental health, what was it called?
It's a clear public health issue, though.
All right, so where does the line, so it's a public health issue, but someplace there is a line drawn between a public health issue and not a public health issue. Isn't all nitrogen entering our waterways a public health issue?
So the state considers, define the nitrogen-sensitive zones as, so Title V is fundamentally a public health regulation. So the way they revised their regulations and where they embedded different things, they put a lot of the requirements under Title V, which is predicated upon public health, okay? On the Brick Hill Road one, although it was in a water resource overlay district, the state considers Long Pond to be a surface water supply. I know, it looks like a big body of water. However, there's no stream in or stream out. There's no watershed, you know, runoff getting into Long Pond. All of the water in Long Pond flows through the ground. It's really an open to the surface groundwater source. So when I was water superintendent, I wrote a fairly direct letter. I think, Noreen, you worked with that. And the developer at the time sort of said, okay, I see that, you know, I don't know if I want to fight about your drinking water supply and public health. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily apply to a 40B that's sitting up in the top of Great Pond right now, because, again, we haven't put these boundaries in, and we're not at that stage.
Okay.
I'd like to say we're going as fast as we can. There's a lot of elements, so.
Thank you very
you.
much for coming here.
Oh, thank you
I
for,
watched your meeting last night, and you struggled with DEP dragging their feet, huh? I'll say it for you.
Yeah.
I'm probably, this is probably too much of a political answer. There are good people in the DEP, and there are other people in the DEP. And I learned a long time ago that there are 2 types of individuals. There are people that live by rules, and there are people that live by principles, okay? The DEP has a lot of people that live by rules, and they get very difficult. And I'll give you a very quick example. We built a brand-new water treatment plant, and we built it so that it's virtually automated, because in the summer, it runs 24 hours a day, and in the winter, it runs 6 or 7 hours a day. And the state's position is, if it's not automated, you have to have an operator sitting there. So we'd have a bunch of operators doing nothing in the winter, okay? So we built it as an automated plant. Came time to start it up in April, finished, and we asked for permission to start it, and the DEP said, well, no, you can't run it in an automated fashion, because our rule says that if you have a water treatment plant, you can request to automate it. So having a brand-new water treatment plant and a 1-year warranty We turned the water plant on, overflowed the clear well, and ran the water back to the reservoir until October, when the demand dropped. And then we ran it at 6 hours a day for 2 months and made the request to get it automated and got approval.
Oh, boy.
Would you leave us a copy of your
Yeah.
presentation?
I gave, oh, you want a copy of this? Sure.
Well, I think we need it for the open meeting law records, but
No problem.
but also, I think,
Email it to you. That helps.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for all you do for the water, too. Appreciate it.
I keep busy.
That you do. All right. So we'll move on to a continued hearing. We have Sullivan, 0 Melrose. And since we didn't receive the plans until Monday afternoon, we're going to continue this one, too, because I definitely haven't had a chance to look at them yet. I don't know if anyone else did, but I have not.
Sure,
And
Ms.
this one's
Murphy.
November 21 also, Noreen?
Yes, I don't know if you want to hear from Mr.
I just wanted to speak to that real quick. We found out from the Board of Health that we couldn't design a septic system for just one bedroom, so we had to revise the septic plan to have capacity for 2, even though we're only proposing a 1-bedroom structure there. So there were some slight changes to the site plan and then to the foundation of the structure. Those are the only changes to the plans, but I certainly understand the board's position.
And we're so jammed, Kevin.
Oh, I understand.
Not a good time to do this.
No, I
Not that it's your
understand.
fault either,
Yep.
though. So it's November 21. Can I have a motion
Do
from?
we need an extension, Madam Chairman?
He's.
Happy to do so.
We do need an extension, right?
What's the date, I'm sorry?
November 21st,
November 21.
November 21st.
that should be it.
And you sign this for me too, Kevin, please. You got yours?
So subject to the improvement, or the council signing the agreement to extend, I'll make a motion to continue to 11/21, Madam Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions up here? All set? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. And now we have new hearings. We have Brasilian, if I said it correctly, I hope, at 23 Old Barnstable Road. Come on up. Frank's going to read.
Okay, I'm going to read
Frank's going to read into the record, but you can come up.
read the notice of public hearing and a few other details. This is application 08324, Tiago Rasilian, 23 Old Barnstable Road, East Falmouth, Mass. Applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 246.6B of the Code of Falmouth to convert the existing dwelling into 3 dwelling units. The property is located at 23 Old Barnstable Road. We have referrals from engineering. They're concerned, they want us to pay attention to the stormwater runoff and soil erosion issues that may occur during this project. The Board of Health has no issues with the septic system. Conservation has passed, no comment. The Water Department suggested that there be an upgrade of the water service to a 1-inch and to remove the meter pit and put the water meter inside the house. Excuse me, I'm reading the wrong one. The engineering is concerned with stormwater runoff. The Board of Health says the septic system will need an upgrade because of the number of bedrooms. Conservation has no concern. The Water Department says independent water service must be provided for each unit. The assessors has a question about the use of the second building on the property and whether it's being used as a residence. The building department says 3 units require a sprinkler system. Also, the basement unit needs 2 means of egress. And the ceiling height in the basement must be 7 feet, and they're not sure the plans show that. We also have on file a letter in opposition from the owner of 31 Old Barnstable Road, who's concerned about noise, traffic, and general nuisance characteristics. So with that,
My name is Carlos. I'm a neighbor of Tiago, was a Brazilian. And Yeah, you request a special permit to convert the resistant
The applicant.
Not the
building.
applicant.
This is
And
not the applicant.
Yeah.
The applicant, that's why it was.
This is in a butter.
Going on.
Oh, we want the applicant first. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm
I thought
sorry.
you were the applicant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
So
Sorry.
I am here because he did have a flat tire coming from Boston. I'm not sure how we'd like to proceed with that. He asked me to speak for him. I've been helping him with all the applications for this hearing as well. So I'm not sure if I can speak for him or,
You can speak, but we have a pretty big problem here. There's a lot of
he's on his way.
non-compliance. And I really believe you should withdraw without prejudice and get it all together and get all your permitting done.
So the other thing I would like to say is that, seeing everything that it is going to be required, such as the sprinklers and the independent water units, he is requesting if we can look into doing a two-unit, like dwelling unit, instead of a three.
Wants to convert
Change it.
to 2 units.
Instead of a
three.
three,
Oh, two and-
yes.
oh, okay, I see what you're
So he
saying.
wouldn't be required to do the sprinklers and all those
What,
requirements for a three.
What is that, how does that
Dwelling.
affect the septic?
Yeah.
So I think
So then-
I would either recommend is he on his way
He
to the
is,
meeting?
um,
So we could either postpone this hearing until he arrives.
Okay.
And give him a chance to speak.
Okay.
I'm sorry. He's gonna need me to speak. His English is not like,
I still
so I've
want
been
him
taking
here.
care of the
Do
case
you
with
want to
Ashley as
introduce
well.
yourself?
Excuse me?
Do you want to
Still want
introduce
him here.
Yes,
Madam
my
Chairman,
name
I
is
would
Carla
object,
Andre. I'm so
absent
sorry
the
about that.
applicant being here, I would object to taking any testimony until he's here.
We'll
I think
wait
We
for
can just
him.
step it back until he arrives and go to a different
I
hearing.
agree.
But,
Okay.
We'll just
beyond
wait
that,
for him.
There's no septic plan here.
We'll just wait for him, and then we'll figure it out from there. All right, so we'll move on to Savonore, 35 Nemasket. We'll just table that one, we'll get right back to it tonight. Nemasket. Now, this is another one, Kevin, where we didn't get the plan complete until yesterday afternoon.
We were alerted Tuesday that there was a discrepancy on the plan.
Yep.
And on Wednesday morning, we submitted the revised plan.
And to be consistent,
I understand. I would ask, understanding how backed up this board is, though, I would ask if the
I know, I hate
members
to
felt.
punt too, but we got to be consistent, I believe.
I think if the board feels they have enough information, they could potentially proceed.
Go ahead, Mark.
We've been struggling with this and the staking policy for a long time. We seem to kind of have it under control, and of late, it seems to be getting back out of control. And I'm just going to state that if the applicants don't abide by our rules, they can guarantee a no vote out of me every time. So the best thing for someone to do when they can't is to call up and continue it instead of going through all of this. I'm just, I'm done. I'm done.
I agree.
And I mean, if you want to continue, you got a guaranteed no vote here. That leaves you one other vote, because two, and you're out for 2 years. I mean, it's not that difficult. And, I mean, we work for nothing. And I mean, I'm done traipsing through the woods looking for stakes and rushing on a Thursday afternoon to look at something new. It's just, you know, I mean, I don't want to be this way, but you're the one that's getting paid, and this is your job, and it's not getting done.
So,
And you're asking for us to make special, I'm done. If you don't meet the staking rules and all the rules that we have, I mean, you'd be better off just continuing beforehand, because you're guaranteed a no vote from me every time.
understood, Mr. Finner. I would just say, you know, I believe the property was staked in accordance with the regulations.
I'm putting them all in, we have, you know.
And, you know, it was a discrepancy in the plans was brought to our attention on Tuesday, and we responded as quickly as we could. At that point, I figured it was best just to come to this hearing and see how the board wanted to proceed. We're happy to, you know, if the board feels that a continuation is needed, we'll certainly request a continuation. I would defer to the board if they feel they have the information necessary to make a determination on the application. But otherwise, if you feel that you need a continuation, we would certainly ask for
I just feel we have to be consistent. You brought in 2 sets of plans too late, not on us, on you. And I can't say yes to one and no to the other. I mean, it's consistency. That's the way I feel about it. I don't know if anyone else disagrees with me, but I hope you don't. I just feel if we're not getting, if the policy says 7 days, we can't just pick and choose which one is 6 days and which one is 1 day, and that's how I
You're an
believe.
example of the second no vote then, and why would anybody even attempt it?
All right, so I'm going to, if anyone will give me a motion to also continue this hearing.
I'll move to continue the hearing to 11:21.
Is there any
To continue
possibility
the
of
hearing
a
to-
sooner date?
Is there a soon? I'm happy to,
Second.
well, I haven't got the date yet.
I don't think we have.
11:21 is kind of busy, I think.
Busy.
Your hearings are like
Jammed. Maybe if we just discussed it, I don't know if we could just do the discussion part and not vote?
What's that going to gain us?
I don't know if we can, I don't know if that's legitimate or not.
I'd like to do it one time.
One shot deal?
Yeah.
Okay. So what day are we doing it on?
November 21st.
So I'll make a motion to continue to 11:21, Madam Chairman.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, another one.
Thank you.
Not here yet?
He's gonna be here.
Okay, so we can move on, though? Quick? Okay. Just thought I'd check.
Thank you.
I saw you make a call. I didn't know if he was out there. All right, so we're moving on to Ostrovsky, if I say it correctly, I hope, 28 Whitecaps. Frank?
Yep. Okay, this is hearing 085-24, Yakov and Galina Ostrovsky, 9 Kippy Drive, Waban, Mass. That's their home. They've applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to Sections 240, 10.2A of the Code of Falmouth to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The property subject property is 28 Whitecaps Drive in East Falmouth, Massachusetts. Now, there's also a part of the application, I think it was a subsequent amendment, under Section 247.7B of the Code of Falmouth for over 15% impervious surface because they're in a water resource protection district. So they actually are looking for 2 special permits. Okay. We have referral from engineering. They're concerned about stormwater erosion control, and they did note that there was the original plan showed an outfall pipe, and they have confirmed that it is not on the lot and not anything we have to concern ourselves with. The Board of Health has reported to us that there was a variance granted to this property in 2012, and it remains sufficient for the property and for the new project. The Conservation Commission has informed us that they've issued an order of condition on August 21st of this year. The Water Department is recommending an upgrade of the water service to 1 inch. And the Building Commissioner reported to us the impervious surface issue, which I think triggered the application under Section 247.7B. We have no letters in opposition, and that's it.
Take it away, Kev.
Good evening. For the record, Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney here in town, and I have the wrong.
You're becoming one of us now, Cal.
My color-coded system failed me. I am before you representing Yakov and Galina Ostrovsky, the owners of 28 Whitecaps Drive. They are seeking permission to raise and rebuild the existing non-conforming dwelling at this property. 28 Whitecaps is located on the western side of Jenkins Pond. It's a fairly dense residential neighborhood. This particular lot is 10,963 square feet, located in the Residential C zoning district, and it is within a water resource protection district. Presently, there's a 4-bedroom, single-family dwelling with a footprint of 1,322 square feet, which is 12.1% lot coverage. The existing dwelling is non-conforming. The rear yard setback to the 20-foot contour of Jenkins Pond is 31, where 50 is required. Otherwise, it's conforming to front yard and side yard setbacks, as well as lot coverage requirements. Lot coverage by structures 12.1, and lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking is 18.7. The applicants purchased this property 12 years ago, and it's in need of significant repairs and upgrades. So they're proposing to raise the existing structure and to rebuild in substantially the same footprint. The proposed structure will maintain the same number of bedrooms. The existing non-conforming setback will be marginally improved from 31 feet to 32 feet. They're unable to improve it further because of the front yard setback requirement, as well as the existing septic located in the front yard, the required setbacks to that. Otherwise, the project will conform to setback and lot coverage requirements. The proposed ridge is 28 feet, 4 3/4 inches, which is well below the 35 feet allowed by right. And as to lot coverage, it'll be 18.7% by structure and 25.4% by structures, paving, and parking. Due to the existing non-conforming setback, this does require a special permit under 240-10.2A and 247.7. Under 10.2A, a pre-existing non-conforming structure may be changed by special permit, provided it's not substantially more detrimental than existing. We're asked to consider the standards of 240-12.1E, whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Here, there's no new nonconformity created. The existing nonconforming setback is improved, as I mentioned. Though the proposed house is larger than what it currently exists, the lot coverage by structure and by structures, paving, and parking will remain well below allowable thresholds. And the home's been designed to be in character with the neighborhood. As mentioned, this does require a special permit under 247.7 for the impervious limitation. So in the Water Resource Protection District, it states that any use with more than 15% of impervious surface requires a special permit, subject to a system designed on the property for groundwater recharge. The revised plan that was submitted shows 4 dry wells for the home, as well as a driveway catch basin, all designed to provide to recharge groundwater without degrading the groundwater quality, which will be permanently maintained by the owner. This proposal already received approval of the Conservation Commission. An order of conditions has been issued. The project as proposed represents an improvement over the existing conditions, improves the existing and increases the usable space for the owners. There's nothing about this proposal that is substantially more detrimental than what exists. I believe it meets all the requirements of 240-10.2A, 247.7, and 240-12.1E. For these reasons, I would ask that the board grant the special permit, and I'd be happy to address any questions that the board might have at this time.
You want to start, Frank?
Mr. Clower, I'm concerned about 247.7B. There are a number of findings we have to make, which we can certainly make, but I thought there was a requirement that accompanying the application, there be some kind of a certification from an engineer to justify us making these findings, which are actually rather technical.
Sure. So this is the first time that I've been requested to include an application under this provision. In speaking with Mike Borselli, he felt that what was proposed on the plan was more than sufficient to provide groundwater recharge. It's taking, all of the dry wells are capturing all of the runoff from this proposal, as well as within the driveway area. It's going to be an improvement over the existing runoff and groundwater recharge that's on the site today.
But given the requirement of the bylaw, I personally would like to have Mr. Borselli send us a letter to that effect for the file. I'm not suggesting that I'm not disbelieving you, but I think given the requirement of the bylaw, we should have something in writing from the engineer who's certifying this. And if you look at 247.7B4E, I think there's a number of findings we have to make, and then earlier in the section, it talks about the submissions from the engineer. I think we need to comply with that. And I agree. I think this is the first Water Resource Protection District case that I remember anyway.
Yeah, I actually had another engineer call me this week and say, have you ever seen this before? Because we just got requested, we were on a different application. We were just requested to amend our application to address it, because I've never even applied under this. So I think it is something that the town maybe had not been looking at previously. In reading the statute, the bylaw, it describes that under special permit uses, so I was a little confused because what's being requested isn't a special permit use, it's a by right use.
Well, it's a by right use, but we're talking about the impervious surface part of it, which is...
No, I understand, but I had read that originally to say that any special permit use that increases the impervious lot coverage above 15%. But that said, if the town is looking for it, we amended the application to include that.
I personally think you have to amend the application to include that information.
We did, and that was submitted a few weeks ago. But we can...
But you amended the application to apply,
Yeah.
but the backup engineer, certified, backup engineer opinion or certification or whatever it is that's required by the bylaw is not here, and I think it should be on file before we vote and grant this special permit, if that's what the board wants to do.
Anything else, Frank?
No.
Mark, you have anything?
No, I don't. I did have a question, but I'll ask it in a, it's kind of a general question, and I don't want to apply it. I'll ask it in some other form. But no, I actually think it's kind of a nice project, but I can
A
understand
needed
Frank's
project.
concerns.
Happy to address any questions you might have, Mr. Finner.
No, it's just to satisfy myself. It's you know, I just, sometimes I'm extra curious. You might have noticed.
Yeah, I ask a lot of questions for my own edification, so I understand.
Yeah.
Jim, you have any questions?
No, in terms of the improvements to the setbacks, the architectural plan submitted, I agree, it's much needed. It would be a vast improvement. I did actually have to look, this was the first time I've ever received this particular section of the zoning bylaw used since I've been on the board.
Yeah.
I would agree with Mr. Duffy's concerns, though, that I think a letter needs to be in the file just so that there's someone, you and I have jokingly put on the record before, we're not mathematicians and so on, and I'm not an engineer, so I'd rather have an engineer talking about groundwater recharge than, so other than that, I can become a yes, but I'd like to see that in the file.
Tony?
I agree with Mr. Duffy, Mr. Morris, on 7.7B. And glad somebody else asked the question before me. I think this is, it's going to fit in very well, obviously, the change. My question is, on the front steps, I mean, they're protruding into the setback area now. They'll continue to protrude into the setback, yet the house is being torn down completely, and it's an opportunity to reconfigure so that the front steps are not in the setback. Can I ask just why that's not being done to try and make it completely conforming?
So right here, we have a 25.6 setback. This is a dry-laid granite step, which historically hasn't been counted as part of the setback because it's not connected to the structure. It's a piece of granite that's placed there. It's not part of the house necessarily, so that hasn't generally been included as part of a setback. And I think they're doing that because that's what works for the site. So I do think that we comply. The structure itself is 25.6 feet, which meets the 25-foot requirement.
So I think, to just continue on that path, it is my belief, I may be wrong, that only applies to, say, a 4x4 granite pad versus steps. And I think the argument being made, is this just a landscape feature?
So that is a 4x4 granite pad.
I'm talking about the other stairs that are
Right here?
going further in, that get you down.
Those are part of, well, I believe those are part of, this is the walkway here, so that's part of the existing walkway. This here is being shown as a proposed bluestone walkway. I don't believe those steps are part of the new plan moving forward.
But they're on the plan. And
Sure, because we show
And I just want to get,
existing.
because this has been a problem since at least I've been on the board. I've seen it come up many times before. And it's always defined as, well, it's not attached to the building. When in fact, you cannot get to the front of the house, given the configuration of this land, unless you do this. So it is an integral part of the structure, otherwise you just fall off the edge and roll into the front door.
Sure, but the way this looks to me, and it sounds like we're going to have to come back anyways, because we're going to have to come back with some information from the engineer, so we can get some clarification on this. it's not unusual to have a walkway, you come out of a door onto the ground, have a walkway, and then there's some steps down to a lower part of the ground. Those steps wouldn't be considered part of the setback, part of the house. That is a landscape feature, because there's other ways, you could meander a walkway in other ways that wouldn't require those steps, but I don't think steps as part of a walkway would ever be considered part of a
All
setback.
right, so I need to look at this as a landscape feature versus attached to the house. So you have then, the rest of it is a 4x4 something landing,
Yes.
not higher than 7 inches?
I'll have to confirm the height for you, but
Could you do that, because that's usually what those are, I just want to understand that, and I appreciate you explaining that to me. Thank you.
Nick, do you have any questions?
I do. So we don't typically use, as you point out, this water resource protection district very often. That being said, there is within 7.7, I believe it's 4, there's a provision for a limit to 20% impervious lot coverage is the maximum within the bylaw.
the next section of the bylaw also refers to 40% lot coverage by impervious surfaces. So that's real unclear. If you look at the next section of the bylaw, this still shows a paved driveway, so if we remove the paved driveway, I think we could get below 20%. But 7.7B, says 6, so even though it should be 5. It starts off by talking about non-residential uses shall not exceed 7.5 gallons per day, but then the last sentence says maximum lot coverage by impervious surfaces shall not exceed 40%. So we have two different numbers there.
Competing bylaws, my favorite.
What section is that in, Kevin?
It's 7.7, it says 6, but it should be number 5, it goes from 4 to 6.
I got 5. Oh. Yeah,
Though that seems to be titled sewage flows. So I guess the question is, because as you look above, it does talk about a minimum lot size, and obviously your lot is existing, right, with frontage. But then it also says maximum lot coverage by impervious surfaces, 20%.
No, I agree, but the last sentence of the next sentence says maximum lot coverage by impervious surfaces shall not exceed 40%.
Yeah, but though that seems to be within the sewage flows.
I think it probably applies to non-residential, but it doesn't say that.
but in any event, you need a special permit if you're over 17, so,
Over 15.
oh, 15, rather.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're, okay.
Will you put the outflow on the plan, too?
I think Mike,
Somebody in the file asked for that?
I think Mike did. I think we established that the outflow starts off the property. He has the, he showed it here, 2 existing catch basins to be fitted with silt socks during construction. That's where the outflow
okay.
pipe starts up there.
Whoever, I can't remember who wrote it in the file, but they asked for it to be put on the plan.
Yeah, engineering, and we responded to
Oh,
that,
okay.
and I think they've had a follow-up comment saying
Okay.
that they acknowledged it.
Well, I looked at it.
Anybody else have any further questions up here? Anybody from the public want to comment on this project? So it looks like we're coming back again.
Should be quick, though.
Noreen, do you have a date for us? Not on the 21st, since we'll have to bring our sleeping bags?
Yeah, no, 21st, yeah.
Do you want to do it on the 7th if it's quick? Is there, I don't know what the 7th looks like. Is there a 7th? I don't think it will take long, that's what,
I mean, you have
15?
You have a new 40B that night, and you have a brand-new cell tower that night.
I'm in Costa Rica.
Oh, no way. Oh, so what about 14?
This should be relatively, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be quick,
Relatively
yeah.
quick.
Is 14 jammed? I'm not sure.
Maybe the 24th? It's quick.
24th is,
Of what?
Yeah.
hopefully it's November.
It's up to you. It's up
November
to
or
you.
October?
Yeah, we could do, I guess.
I mean, I just think it's pretty
Yeah.
quick if he brings
Yeah,
everything in.
I mean,
We should be able to get something from Mike.
Mr. Boycelli's analysis, that's
November
really
7th.
what we're looking for.
November 7th, yeah, I think we could do it pretty quick.
And I
November
just-
7th.
I don't know how to square that circle about the 20, 40%.
I know, we'll do, I'm going to do homework on it myself. I don't know either.
see if I can get some further information.
Yeah. So I'll take a motion to continue to November 7th?
So moved.
Second.
7th to 24th, I thought
We
We're
we did
November
7.
7.
We ended on 7. Is that okay with you? 7?
yeah.
Okay.
Let me just double check.
Well, I'm not going to be here on the 7th, so. Should be both of you.
7, yeah.
Yeah, you both the alternates are here, so you'll have your 5.
Yeah, the 7th should be fine for me.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Kevin, that was strike 3.
I still got one more, so.
Oh, boy. All right, moving on. Oh, we'll have you come up now. We'll finish up. So we're back to Rassillian? Is that how I say it? Rosslyn, okay, thank you, I apologize. And you've already read the record in,
I
correctly?
read the record in.
Okay. So tell us what you want to tell us.
Yeah, so practically, he would like to convert it into a 2-dwelling unit instead of a 3 because of all the requirements it entails.
I'm gonna spend a lot of money to convert with the 3, so I just want to do it just for 2, which is gonna be a lot easier to me.
And also because the basement doesn't meet the height
Height,
requirement,
yeah.
so it will be easier to do a
Keep it as-
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot
2-unit
easier, yeah.
dwelling.
There was quite a few other problems on that property, though.
Yes.
That need to be cleaned up.
Okay.
And you really shouldn't come before us not cleaned up. You need to have all your ducks in a row, pretty much, I think. You're
Sure.
non-compliant. You can't come before us and when you're kind of breaking the rules already.
And for the 2-unit, it will be the same requirements as for the 3?
No, I don't think the sprinklers for a
Not the
2.
sprinklers and also the septic system.
Well, we don't have any indication of what you have for a septic
So
system.
The septic system, my house is, it's a 5-bedroom, legal 5-bedroom, so I'm not gonna change it. It's gonna be 2-bedroom upstairs and 3-bedroom downstairs. That's it. I'm not gonna put any other room.
But we'll get a confirmation of that from the Board of Health, and then we'll be all
Right.
set.
That's what we did.
And have to change the plans.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to change your plans and do everything and like kind of almost start over?
Okay.
And then you can show that it's only going to be a 2-family,
Okay.
you know, that kind of thing.
Okay, perfect.
So we'll do a thing called a withdraw without prejudice. So there's nothing, you know, you just kind of clean up and then come back and we'll tackle it again.
And you will need, they'll need a building permit for the rear structure
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So I would get the rear structure permitted with the building department first, and then you can come back with the changed plans for the house.
So you need to change plans and also the permit for the rear structure.
Just go to the building department, they'll help you.
So I will have to
Come back here.
come back and give you the plans all over again and all that stuff?
May I ask a quick question, Bill?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Warwick and Associates plans indicates that you've already converted these units, including the basement. I mean, that's what it shows in the plan. So are these actual, have you already converted these units, all 3?
Yes, so practically they have been converted.
All right, so they have, because that's what Warwick's shown.
Yes.
And without a permit, that's why we're trying to do it
Try to get
legally.
Everything's right, so it was supposed to.
So you will eliminate the basement unit.
Yes,
That'll show on the plan, and you'll get everything permitted, including that back.
correct. He
yeah,
will,
that's-
he will
yeah.
take everything out, the kitchen and everything that he.
And did you ask them to come back with, not because, I'm asking the question because they've already gone ahead and done this. And have they had fire inspections, certifications, occupancy permits, or any of that?
We did for the first floor, the second floor. Just the basement wasn't.
That's the only one that does not have
That's the only
occupancy.
one. That's why we just wanted to get a
great.
permit.
No,
The
that's
kitchen
great.
in that basement?
Yeah, so
That
that's,
has
he's
to-
gonna take, yes, that has to
I know
go.
that, yes, yes.
So that's why we're just trying to, just to see if we can up.
I mean, it can be accomplished, it just has to be cleaned up
And
and,
then with the withdrawal,
Right.
we have to do it all over
Yeah.
again.
yep.
Yep.
And the building department will help you along
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah, and
Very
he will still be getting fined for it,
That's his department, that's the building
because he stopped
department.
with the
That's not-
fining, and that's the thing that I'm worried about.
Not our ballgame,
That's,
I don't
the
know.
building department will help you with that, too.
The
And
fining?
They're very reasonable.
Okay.
They do nice, I mean,
Okay,
you're
perfect.
honest with them, they'll be square with you.
All right, thank you. Is there anything?
So can I have a withdrawal without prejudice?
Motion to withdraw without prejudice?
Just to clarify, that's what they're requesting, then.
Yes. That, the withdrawal without prejudice is okay?
It's fine.
I mean,
Yes.
can we reschedule it and then present the other plans, or
No,
that wouldn't be
you just
ideal?
have to make a new,
I'd have
You're
to
filing.
New application and new everything?
Yes.
Like doing it all over again?
start over again, right?
Yeah.
Get
Okay,
another- so you
awesome.
can get another
It's okay.
date.
All right,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Good job.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to allow the withdrawal without prejudice.
Thank you.
second that.
All those in favor of withdrawal without prejudice?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Can I say something?
Oh, shoot, I should have gone to the public before we withdraw. Come on up. We didn't close it, but yes. Sorry, I forgot you were here. Sorry.
I live next to Tiago.
I apologize, sir.
My concern is, how many people is going to live there after this go
Well,
through?
they're going to come back now,
Yeah,
so you might want to wait until they refile.
Come back, yeah.
That might be your best bet. And, because they're going to come back and they're getting rid of one of the apartments, so that'll, cut it down a little bit. But I would wait until they file again.
because my concerns is a lot of trash comes in my backyard, my garden. When is the party, beer bottles, and
Well, that would be something you'd bring back. When they
Yeah.
come back, you bring that
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
And sorry, I didn't recognize you. Sorry. Thank you. All right, last but not least, we have Gray Bear LLC, 66 Highland. Take it away, Frank.
Okay. This is application number 08624, submitted by Gray Bear LLC. They've applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit pursuant to sections 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4 of the Code of Falmouth to construct a second-floor addition, covered entry, and replace the existing sunroom exceeding 20% lot coverage by structure. The subject property is 66 Highland Avenue in North Falmouth. We have referrals. The engineering department suggests that we pay attention to the stormwater runoff and erosion control. They also note that there's a stone wall within the public right-of-way, which maybe requires a license from the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Health has advised us that the septic system will have to be upgraded because you're going from a three-bedroom to a four-bedroom house. Conservation Commission had no comment. The Water Department has recommended that the service be upgraded to a 1-inch service. The Building Department had no comment, and we have no letters on file.
Thank you.
Take it away, Kevin.
Again, Kevin Clower for the applicant, Jim Marr, who's the manager of Gray Bear LLC, which is the owner of 66 Highland Avenue. Mr. Marr is here with us this evening. He is requesting permission to alter the existing non-conforming dwelling on the property. So 66 Highland Avenue is located centrally in New Silver Beach, which, as you know, is a very dense residential neighborhood. This particular lot is 10,450 square feet. It's a residential C zoning district, and it is not in the flood zone. So presently, there's a three-bedroom, single-family dwelling on this property. The footprint's 1,871 square feet. As it exists, it's non-conforming in a few ways. The front yard setback to Highland Avenue is 20.6 feet, where 25 is required. The side yard setback to the west is 7.4 feet, where 10 is required. and the rear yard setback to the shed is 3 feet where 10 is required. The proposed plan includes a second-story addition, which is over the existing footprint, as well as a proposed screen porch, which is largely over an existing deck. There's no change to any of the existing nonconformities. The lot coverage by structure does increase slightly. It goes to 20.5%. And the bedroom count does increase. It goes from 3 to 4. And there is a new septic system that's being proposed per the plan. The proposed ridge height of the addition will be 27 feet 8 inches, again, well under the 35 that's allowed by right. Because of the non-conforming setbacks, this does require a special permit pursuant to 240-10.2A and 240-11.3A4. Under 10.2A, pre-existing non-conforming structures may be changed by special permit, provided this board finds it's not substantially more detrimental than what exists. You're asked to consider the standards of 240-12.1E and whether or not the alteration creates any new dimensional nonconformities, impairs views and vistas, and reasonably conforms to the neighborhood. Here, there's no new nonconformities created. The existing nonconformities are entirely unaffected. The lot coverage by structure will be 20.5, which is allowable by special permit, and the lot coverage by structures, paving, and parking will be 29.6%, which is well below the 40% allowed. As to 240-11.3A4, within the residential C zoning district, lot coverage by structure exceeding 20% but below 25% requires a special permit. The board's asked to consider the size and height of the structure in relation to the neighborhood, the effects of shadow, the impacts on views and vistas from public ways, and the effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. The proposed house is larger than what exists, and as proposed will be among the larger in the area, but it's by no means an outlier within the neighborhood. New Silver is a dynamic and in many ways changing neighborhood. There's a variety of styles and sizes of homes within that area. The design is certainly not out of character with the neighborhood either aesthetically or visually. With that consideration, I think there's limited impacts of shadowing of views and vistas from public ways. The ridge height will be 27 feet as noted, which is fairly modest. And there should be little to no effect on nitrogen with a newly designed septic system. The project represents a significant improvement over the existing conditions. There's no adverse effects and certainly none that overbalance the benefits. There's nothing about this proposal that is substantially more detrimental than what currently exists on the property. For that reason, it meets the requirements of 240-10.2A, 11.3A4, and 12.1E. I'd be happy to address any questions the board may have, but otherwise would ask that you grant the special permit.
Mark, you want to start off down there?
Yeah, it looks all nice to me. Definite improvement. But I'm just going to point out to you that there's a stake missing in the front corner, which anybody could see. And I was quite serious about what I said earlier. I mean, I think it's incumbent upon you. Maybe we should even change the application and indicate that if things aren't properly done as requested, you risk a no vote, and you're certainly going to risk one with me in the future. But other than that, I like what I saw. I have no other problems with it.
So I would actually note, we actually confirmed with the engineer last week that this had been staked. So if the stake wasn't there, it had been removed because it was there.
I mean, but I mean, inform your clients. That's all. I mean, this thing keeps repeating itself, and it's really not necessary.
Frank, you have any questions?
One of the criteria for the special permit to increase the lot coverage by structure is the effect of nitrogen on coastal embayments. Did you mention that in your
Yes, I did.
presentation? Okay, so that's
There's a new septic system being proposed that will accommodate, more than accommodate the increase
okay.
by 1 bedroom.
I have a note here that there's going to be a new D-night septic system.
So I had written denitrification on the application, and looking at the application, it actually notes that it's designed to accommodate a denitrification system at a later date, much like Mr. Rafferty was just discussing. And just speaking with the applicant now, he understands and would. There's no Board of Health requirement for a denitrification system now.
No.
But if it's a condition, it's a condition.
Well, all right, thank you.
But either way, the new system is designed to accommodate, and I learned this tonight from Steve, but this was, they place the denitrification between the tank and the distribution box, and it says 6-inch elevation drop to accommodate future advanced treatment, because I think he said that you might need to pump, but this is designed specifically to accommodate that change, which.
Okay. Thank you.
Jim,
No questions, thank you.
Tony,
I have no questions, thank you.
and Nick?
No questions.
Anybody from the audience? You sure?
David
You gotta come up.
Come on up, sir.
Thank you.
I'm David Hines from 74 Highland. I'm 2 houses up, and I look at the plans. I've been in the neighborhood for 32 years, and I ask that you approve it. It looks good. It'll be an addition to the neighborhood and make it look that much better on our street. So thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
When your neighbor gets up to speak, I never know which way it's going.
You
and
never know.
I had a big sigh of relief about halfway through that, and I was like,
Is the house next door abandoned?
I don't know.
That's where I turned around in the driveway there when I went and.
There's a paper road just to the side, if you're looking at the house just to the right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about the one when you're looking
To the
in the
left.
front door to the left, yeah. All right, Mark, you're all set?
Yeah, I'm good.
Noreen, do you have anything on this one? No?
Make a motion to close, Madam Chairman.
Can I get a second on a close?
Second.
We're all set to close. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of closing?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So now,
Motion to approve with conditions?
Second.
here you go. We have a motion to approve the conditions and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. All right, let's do findings.
Okay, the property is 66 Highland Avenue in North Falmouth. The zoning district is RC. They've applied for a special permit under Section 240, 10.2A of the zoning bylaw, and also under Section 11.3A4 to construct a second-floor addition, covered entry, and replace sunroom exceeding lot coverage by structure. That's the special permit under 11.3A4. It's not in a flood zone. There's a previous zoning board decision, 33-96, which allowed a deck with a screened porch. The existing property now is 1,871 square feet. The proposal is for 2,138 square feet. The lot is 10,450 square feet, where 40,000 is required in the district. The street frontage, according to the plan that I saw, is 110 feet, where 100 is required. Highland Avenue in this particular location is a public way. The proposal is to convert the property from 3 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms. We have lot coverage by structure presently at 17.9%, and it's going to 20.5%. The limit is 20, but they need the special permit, which I just referred to exceed the 20%. Lot coverage by structure, parking, and paving is 28.5. It's going to increase to 29.6. The limit is 40. There are some nonconformities. The front setback is 20 feet where 25 is required. On the west side, it's 7.4 feet where 10 is required. There was one that Mr. Clower referred to, I think, a deck being nonconforming.
The shed.
A shed being nonconforming. The height of the proposed building will be 27 feet. We have referrals from the various departments, which I read with the notice of hearing. We have one neighbor who spoke in favor. There will be, the new septic system will be able to accommodate a D-night septic. It'll be conformed to Title V, and it will accommodate a D-night or advanced septic system if required in the future. Under 240, 12.1E, the special permit, the site is adequate for the proposed use. It's suitable for the proposed use. There's been no testimony about impacts or adverse impacts on traffic flow and safety. No testimony about impacts on the neighborhood visual character, views, or vistas. There's adequate treatment or adequate provisions for sewage treatment, utilities, and no impact on affordable housing. And as for the special permit for the additional lot coverage, We have to consider the size and height of the proposed structure relative to the average in the neighborhood. We find that it is in proximate conformity. There's no apparent issues on shadows on abutting property. The views from public ways are not affected, and the nitrogen coastal embayment is handled by the new septic system.
And a butter in favor?
Did I mention him?
He mentioned
You did
that.
mention that? And did you do Wild Harbor Coastal?
Oh, excuse me, Wild Harbor Coastal Pond Overlay District.
I think.
Yeah, for one friendly amendment.
Okay,
Ridge height was 27 feet, 8 inches.
okay, all right.
Nice. We always struggle, can't even read them. All right. And now we'll move on to conditions. The stone wall needs to be addressed, right?
Yes, that's a,
License.
apparently it's
License
in
with
the
the
right-of-way of Highland Avenue.
All town boards,
Right.
work hours.
I would just note the water referral was a recommendation, not a requirement.
Yes, it's a recommendation. He did make that clear.
Work hours. Any other conditions, Noreen, can you?
Vehicles remaining on the property?
Or to work with the police. It gets a little tight down there, depending on when work is going to be done. So just work with the police department if need be to establish a traffic plan.
They can use that paper road.
That's true.
Yep,
Shouldn't
so,
be any issue.
yeah. So with that stone wall, I guess the question is whether it's actually in the road layout or not. So what I would recommend is to have the surveyor verify that, and if indeed it does exceed the lot line, to request a license from the select board for that.
Yep,
It looks like it's,
marginally.
It's a nice wall, too.
and then I guess the other would be, there's a bonus room in, I think, the basement or first floor? That should remain open. I think it's shown as cased now, but,
Well, it's open to the stairwell below.
okay.
It's, you know, a 6-foot opening here. It's not even cased, it's just it's a hallway into
Yeah,
the,
so we'd probably just reference that it stays that way to match the
per
bedroom
plan, I
count.
think,
Yeah.
it addresses that, too.
And nothing else additional on the property? Right? Well, the rinse station's included in the plan. Anybody else have any other conditions? You all set? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
1 for 4 makes me a 250 hitter. That he gets to stay in the majors.
Bruins opener. Big night.
I'm going Saturday.
Huh?
Going Saturday. I don't know that I've ever been to a Bruins game before.
Really?
Life.
In the old garden or there?
I've been to Celtics, plenty of Red Sox, Patriots. I don't know that I've ever
You
been
gotta
to a
go, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Enjoy
I
yourself.
know, and I like hockey. I went to UNH. I mean, this is just one of those things.
Bringing your kids?
Bring my son to his 10th birthday.
Ooh,
Okay.
nice. Double digit.
Would have loved it more if you were a BC Eagle.
Want to adopt me?
I was given the tickets. Lawrence Lynch gave us the tickets.
Nice.
God bless them.
And I appreciate you accommodating the last hearing, because I had something scheduled and forgot that I was away with my wife, and she would have.
Kev, we really have to get stuff in 7 days. We're like, we can't do this.
I understand.
Okay.
Been popping up all over, you know?
What's that?
They've been popping up all over. I mean,
It's
No,
crazy.
I understand, and, you know, we found out about on Tuesday, and we addressed it as quick as we possibly could. And, you know, we found out from the Board of Health last week on the other one, had to have changes to the site plans and the building plans. So, you know, I don't want to come with plans that aren't right,
No, I agree.
and
Just gotta do the best we can do, that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Oh, I put my agenda away, I got all excited.
A few more things.
I'll use yours.
Go ahead.
All right, are we doing any minutes?
Tabling minutes.
Tabling minutes? Zoning administrator updates.
I have nothing special to tell you, so I won't waste your time.
Nice. Board discussion.
Yay.
I want to discuss it. I hope that we all feel I made the right decision on being consistent.
Absolutely.
That's how I felt about it. I struggled. I totally struggled, but because
It's
I
hard,
knew.
it's difficult to say no, but I think
Yeah.
it's the right choice.
No, I would agree, Madam Chairman, and to get things in, it gives the board, it's one, to make sure that things are timely submitted. The abutters have the right to see what the most up-to-date plans are,
Absolutely, yep.
so that they can come in for, but more importantly, the board needs to be able to look at plans, digest, think about them, come up with questions, and be well-informed. Are there situations where, I mean, if something is filed that could be very de minimis, for example, if a comp sheet comes in 4 days before a hearing, I think that, I would entertain at that point, maybe going forward, but when plans are submitted with changes, that's a significant change, and I think that continuing is the appropriate thing to do. The other point is the attorney has a duty of candor to the tribunal, and if he can't proceed on old plans, if he does, he could be committing malpractice.
Okay.
So I absolutely think that was the right decision.
And,
I struggled just because we're so jammed.
I was going to say, one of those was essentially my fault, in that when I was looking at the architecturals and the site plan, I noticed that they didn't match. And so I'm sure it was a rush to see if you could get that fixed, and they miraculously were able to. But you still have that time frame, and certainly it falls to the applicant to make sure that the information is thorough and correct. And
You're not at fault
so we,
for finding, that was actually
You're
a
not
great
at
thing
fault
that you
for
did.
for doing your job.
Really.
And, I mean, we need time to do our job. We're not all on the same schedule.
Right.
And, quite honestly, I mean, we get paid nothing, and they're getting paid plenty, and it falls into their lap. I mean, and they just got to form better habits, because, as I say, I'll be a no vote on any of these in the future, and I'm just,
Okay.
we've spoken about this enough.
Yep. Any other board discussion? Board updates.
So, Madam Chairman, just to make sure you're aware and the rest of the board is aware, I know we've got a scheduled meeting on October 24th. I will not be here that evening. I'm in the middle of a significant Superior Court civil trial, and I will be out of the country on the 31st and the 7th. So taking a much-needed vacation, so just make sure that the alternates are aware and be prepared.
actually, the 31st is no meeting, so
Really? We get
One less absence then.
3 days off this year? Wow.
Well, we're going to get Thanksgiving off, I think.
Does it work out that way, too?
31st is Halloween, so.
I'll be dressed.
Trick or
Is
treat.
there another one on there? Or are we done? Future agenda items.
Does she have any updates?
Oh, do we have dates for a meeting with the selectmen?
we don't yet, but I will
Should we
look into
email you
that.
our
and- Well,
dates?
I'll check with the select board. We'll probably wind up doing that backwards and
Okay.
see what, yeah.
Is a Saturday morning available, like a workshop time?
No.
No?
With the selectmen, they
Yeah.
only do that once a year, I think.
Well, they do workshops on Saturday, too. I just
I
didn't know.
know they do, but they don't do many of them, do they?
No, I just didn't know if it was an option,
Generally
that's all.
not.
I'm just throwing it out there to the wind, but whenever. So you'll work on those dates? Okay. I think that's going to be a good meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I do, I think it's
Yeah.
important.
Looking forward to it.
I hope it's a good meeting. All right, we good? Mark?
Motion
Do your
to
job.
adjourn.
Frank?
Quarter of eight.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we have adjourned.